Lucas Bennett woke to sunlight streaming through Ryan's apartment window, unaware that in 12 hours his world would shatter. Ryan stirred beside him, fingers intertwined beneath worn sheets. These Saturday mornings had become sacred, stolen moments where Lucas could exist without pretense. The smell of coffee filled the small East Austin space as Ryan shuffled to the kitchen. They'd been together over a year, building a secret life, planning a future that felt impossibly close, yet heartbreakingly far. Tomorrow they'd view an apartment together, a real place where hiding would end. The drive from Austin to Westfield took 30 minutes but felt like crossing centuries. Progressive murals gave way to church steeples and pickup trucks. Lucas's hands gripped the wheel tighter as radio shifted from indie to country. The Bennett house sat on Westfield's edge, a ranch-style monument to Texas tradition. Longhorns flags flanked the porch. Inside, David Bennett's coaching trophies lined every surface. Lucas smelled brisket before opening the door. David stood in the dining room wearing his University of Texas polo. Framed photos of Sarah covered walls, her smile frozen in time. 2 years gone, but still dictating every decision. The doorbell rang, and confusion turned to ice when the Thompsons walked in. Robert Thompson, bank president, Patricia Thompson, choir director, and between them, Emily. Lucas hadn't seen her since middle school, but the awkward girl had transformed into an elegant Yale graduate. Then Patricia cleared her throat. Emily had come home to marry him. The words choked the air. An arranged marriage, a promise between his dying mother and Patricia years ago. David pulled Lucas into his study. Sarah had worried about Lucas's future in her final months. David explained. She'd wanted him settled with a good woman. Emily was perfect. Lucas tried protesting, but David's expression hardened. He'd paid 4 years of tuition. Lucas lived in David's apartment, drove David's truck, worked at David's gym. Walk away from Emily. Walk away from everything. David produced a letter in Sarah's handwriting. She'd written about Lucas and Emily as children, how they'd be happy together. Lucas's hands shook reading his mother's words, guilt mixing with grief. He returned to the living room and heard himself agree. Emily's genuine joy was a knife twisting deeper. That night in his childhood bedroom, Lucas stared at superhero posters. His phone buzzed with Ryan's texts about tomorrow's apartment viewing, plans for their future. His window slid open. Ryan climbed through with practiced ease. Ryan's smile faded, seeing Lucas's face. Lucas said he needed to come out to his father soon, that secrets were becoming too heavy. David's voice echoed from the hallway. Ryan disappeared into the closet. David entered, reminding Lucas about ring shopping tomorrow with Emily. Tenet Fisher Jewelers. After David left, Ryan emerged. Ring shopping? The words hung between them. Lucas watched understanding dawn in Ryan's eyes. Ryan asked directly, had Lucas agreed to marry Emily? Silence answered. Ryan left through the window. Lucas sat alone, surrounded by evidence of a life spent becoming someone else. His phone lit up with Emily's when. Calling this a fairy tale biome, Lucas thought of Marcus Hayes, his father's former star player, now an NFL commentator with wife and kids. David had mentioned Marcus might offer wisdom about marriage, but Lucas had seen something in Marcus's eyes at chance meetings, a recognition that made sense only now. They were the same, both living in cages built from others' expectations. Sleep didn't come. Instead, Lucas calculated the cost of truth versus the price of lies, and honesty seemed a luxury he couldn't afford. By dawn, Lucas had chosen. He'd marry Emily, honor his mother's memory, keep his father's love, and bury the truth so deep it might stop clawing to the surface. Sometimes we convince ourselves that living for others is noble, that sacrifice equals love. But authenticity isn't a commodity to barter. It's the foundation of everything we are. And without it, even the most comfortable cage remains a prison. Subscribe to Heart Stories for more journeys about finding courage to live truth. Fisher Jewelers occupied Main Street's corner, where Mrs. Fisher had sold rings to 3 Westfield generations. The store sparkled with compressed promises, diamonds catching Sunday light. Emily moved toward displays with careful excitement. Mrs. Fisher brought trays while discussing styles. Emily tried on ring after ring, and Lucas watched her hands transform. His own hands trembled violently. When he dropped his phone, the screen cracked. He mumbled about needing air. Westfield Town Square spread across the street. Lucas sat on a bench where he'd played as a child. Emily found him, sat without speaking at first. Then she started talking. London hadn't been escape, but retreat from heartbreak. A boyfriend named Oliver, who'd seemed perfect until she'd discovered he was seeing two other women. Coming home devastated. Her parents promised they knew someone perfect. And when they'd said Lucas's name, something in Emily had hoped. Emily took his hand. She wasn't asking him to love her immediately. Her parents said love came after marriage. They had history. They could build something real if they tried. Then she asked the question that would haunt Lucas. Was there a chance? Any chance at all? And Lucas, looking into her hopeful eyes, said yes. They bought the ring. Mrs. Fisher took their photo for the Gazette. The apartment viewing was scheduled for late afternoon. Lucas drove to Austin with his stomach in knots. Ryan had been texting all morning, love and hope and plans. The apartment was perfect. Hardwood floors, big windows, a kitchen where Ryan could cook. Ryan grew animated, pulling out his phone to show furniture options, the Pinterest board he had secretly curated. Ryan was ready to sign immediately. When the landlord stepped out, Ryan turned to Lucas with a smile that died, registering Lucas's expression. Lucas tried finding gentle words, but there was no soft way. He'd gone ring shopping that morning. For Emily, because he was marrying her. Silence that followed was the sound of a future collapsing. Ryan's face cycled through confusion and disbelief before landing on devastation. Ryan's pain manifested in pacing and shouted questions. Why would Lucas do this? The answer about his father's threats only fueled Ryan's anger. He'd lost his own father for 2 years after coming out, had survived, had chosen authenticity over security. Ryan posed an ultimatum. Choose right now, me or her. But Lucas couldn't. Then Ryan said words that would echo for months. He loved Lucas so much it hurt, but he couldn't watch this happen. He wouldn't be the secret Lucas kept while playing husband to Emily. Ryan removed the promise ring Lucas had given him and set it on the kitchen counter. Then he left, and Lucas slid down the wall. That evening, Lucas ended up at the Rusty Spoke, a dive bar where neon signs competed with football games. He ordered tequila. Tyler Rodriguez found him 3 drinks in. When Lucas slurred he was getting married, Tyler assumed he meant to Ryan before reality hit. David appeared, tracked Lucas through location services. David brought Marcus Hayes. David explained he'd asked Marcus to talk to Lucas about marriage. Then David left them alone. But Marcus surprised them both. He ordered whiskey and sat in silence before admitting everything David believed about him was a lie. His marriage wasn't a success story but a prison. Marcus was gay. Had known since college, but had been a quarterback in Texas when being gay wasn't an option. So he'd married Jennifer, had kids, built a life that looked perfect outside but felt like suffocation within. Marcus described his reality. He'd been having an affair with a male trainer for 5 years. If he could go back to 24 knowing what he knew now, he'd have courage to choose himself. Marcus leaned forward. Your father doesn't have to wake up in your skin every morning. You do, whatever you decide. Make sure you can live with it. The next 3 months passed in a haze. April brought engagement parties where Lucas drank too much. May brought graduation. June brought rehearsal dinner where everyone was happy except the groom. The night before the wedding, Lucas sat in his truck at 3 a.m. He typed confession and apology to Ryan before deleting every word. He drove to his mother's grave and asked for a sign that never came. When sunrise painted the Texas sky, Lucas accepted his fate. The wedding was today. We tell ourselves that time will make hard choices easier, that if we wait, we'll find courage. But time doesn't grant courage. It only gives us more opportunities to choose who we'll become. Westfield Baptist Church stood white against June's sky. Heat shimmered off the parking lot where the entire town gathered. Lucas stood in the small groom's room, his reflection belonging to someone he didn't recognize. The tuxedo collar felt like a noose. His hands shook so violently that David had to button his vest. Coach Pete Wilson checked in, and Lucas caught sadness in the older man's expression. In another room, Emily stood in lace and silk. Grace applied makeup while arguing one final time. Emily insisted she was happy, that feelings would develop. The sanctuary filled with 150 guests. Tyler sat with groomsmen, leg bouncing. Marcus Hayes sat with the wife Jennifer and children. And when his eyes met Lucas's, there was a slight shake of his head. The processional began, then doors opened for Emily. She walked toward Lucas on her father's arm, radiant with hope. Lucas's vision tunneled. His heartbeat thundered. Emily reached the altar. Her eyes met Lucas's, filled with love and trust. Pastor Jim began, "Dearly beloved, sacred union, marriage built on truth and trust." The pastor said, "This marriage was built entirely on lies. The moment arrived. If anyone has reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace." Silence stretched across the sanctuary. Pastor Jim continued to Lucas's vows. "Do you take Emily Rose Thompson to be your lawfully wedded wife? To have and to hold, for better or worse, to love and to cherish, till death do you part." Lucas opened his mouth and nothing emerged. Everyone waited. Emily's smile began to falter. Emily whispered it was okay. Take your time. He saw his future with a sudden clarity. The wedding night he'd fake, the house he'd resent, the children he'd have because that's expected. 30 years from now, he'd be Marcus Hayes, successful and miserable. Lucas heard himself say the words, "I can't." Gasps rippled. Emily's confusion. "What?" Lucas backed away. "I can't do this." Pastor Jim attributed it to nerves. David stood, voice sharp, but Lucas was beyond control now, beyond fear, beyond everything except truth. He turned to Emily. "You deserve so much better, better than someone who can't love you completely. And I can't be that person." The words emerged clear and loud. "Because I'm gay. I've been gay my whole life." Complete silence answered. Emily's face landed on devastation, mascara beginning to run. Lucas couldn't stop talking. He'd been lying to everyone because he was terrified. But Emily deserved someone who woke up excited to be with her, and that would never be him. There was never any chance. Patricia Thompson's shriek cut through. Robert Thompson charged forward. Grace held Emily as she collapsed into sobs. David issued his ultimatum. Step back up to that altar. When Lucas refused, David spelled out consequences. Walk out and lose everything. You will be nothing to me. Then David invoked Sarah's memory, and something in Lucas snapped. Don't you dare use her against me anymore. He acknowledged he knew he'd have nothing, but at least he'd have himself. David insisted Sarah would be ashamed. Lucas's response was quiet. Maybe. Or maybe she would have wanted me to be happy. We'll never know because she's gone. Lucas apologized to Emily one final time. Then he turned and walked down the aisle. Tyler stood immediately, following. Coach Pete gave a subtle nod. Marcus Hayes had tears streaming. The church doors opened onto blinding sunlight. Tyler asked where they were going and Lucas started laughing. He had no idea, but it was his choice. David chased him down the steps. Everything Lucas had was because of David. Walk away and lose it all. Lucas answered honestly. He didn't know where he'd go, but he'd figure it out. David delivered the blow. Then go. Get out of my sight. You are no son of mine. Inside, Emily asked Grace if she'd done something wrong. Patricia planned damage control. Marcus Hayes slipped on in quietly, sat in his car, and stared at a phone contact as something shifted. Tyler drove them toward Austin, Westfield disappearing in the rear view. His phone showed 47 missed calls. One text stood out. Proud of you, Coach Pete. Tyler asked if Lucas was okay. Lucas said to ask him tomorrow. They drove toward uncertainty and truth, toward a life that would be harder but honest. Standing at altars and speaking truth doesn't make us heroes. It makes us human. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is stop pretending, even when honesty costs us everything. Tyler's East Austin apartment represented sanctuary. Lucas sat on the couch still wearing tuxedo pants, staring at nothing while his phone buzzed. Tyler brought water and didn't ask questions. The first night, Lucas slept 14 hours. When he woke Monday, he'd forgotten why he was there. Then memory crashed back. Tyler had plans. Lucas needed a job. They spent the day applying. Finally, a restaurant needed a server immediately. Working was humbling. His feet ached, his back hurt. But when the manager handed him $67 in tips, Lucas felt something new. He'd earned this himself. The first week passed in survival. Tyler covered rent. Lucas worked double shifts. Meanwhile, the world reacted. Marcus Hayes scheduled a press conference. Emily stayed in her bedroom, curtains drawn. By Thursday, she finally showered. When Grace asked what she was thinking, Emily said she needed to leave Westfield. David Bennett's week was hell. He returned home to wedding gifts and reminders of Sarah. At coaching meetings, everyone was awkward. Coach Pete suggested time off. David insisted he was fine. He wasn't. Thursday, David went through Lucas's childhood room. Football trophies that were David's, not Lucas's. Photos of Lucas looking miserable in Pee-wee uniform. One photo hidden. Lucas, age 8, with Sarah at a pride parade. A rainbow bracelet, worn. David sat holding that bracelet, and for the first time, he cried. Friday, Coach Pete stayed after practice. We need to talk. Pete was insistent. Finally, Pete spoke. I know what Lucas is going through, because I'm gay too. David, have been my whole life. David was stunned. Pete told his story. His dad was like David. When Pete told him at 19 in 1985, his dad said he was no son of his. They never spoke again. 18 years until his father died. Pete asked, "Is that what you want?" Because Lucas told the truth. He could have lied, made you happy, but he chose honesty. That's not weakness, that's courage. That night, David pulled out old videos. One clip, Lucas, age 6, saying, "Daddy, watch me dance." David on video responding, "Boys don't dance. Go throw the football." Lucas's face falling. David realized he'd been crushing Lucas forever. 2 weeks later, Marcus Hayes held his press conference. I'm gay. I've known since college, but I was a quarterback in Texas, so I hid, I married, had children, and I've been living a lie for 12 years. Marcus continued, 2 weeks ago I attended a wedding. I watched a young man stand at an altar and tell the truth, knowing he'd lose everything. That young man had more courage than I've had in 36 years. Marcus confessed, the affair with a trainer for 5 years, lying to everyone. Jennifer and I are separating. She deserves honesty. My kids deserve a father who's authentic. Marcus ended, if you're watching this, Lucas, thank you. Thank you for showing me what courage looks like. Watching you do that gave me permission to do the same. David watched alone. Marcus was talking about Lucas. Living a lie cost more than any truth made David think of Pete's words. David went to Lucas's room, saw photos. Not one of Lucas playing football where he looked happy, but photos of Lucas reading. With Sarah, laughing with Tyler showed real joy. David talked to Sarah's photo. I got it wrong. You wanted him happy. Our son is gay, and he's brave, and I broke him. David called Tyler, got Ryan's address. Tyler was protective. David said he was wrong, needed to talk. Tyler gave one condition. You don't show up unless you're ready to listen. Can you do that? David said yes. The next morning, David drove to Ryan's apartment. He knocked. Ryan opened, shocked. Behind him, Lucas emerged and froze. They sat. David admitted he had been attending P-flag meetings for 5 weeks. David apologized. I was wrong. Your mom knew. Lucas, she knew you were gay, and she wanted you happy. David confessed, I twisted her words because I was scared. I'm sorry. Lucas's pain emerged. You said I was nothing. David was crying. I know, but you're everything. You're my son, and I love you. Lucas asked. Do you accept me? David answered. I'm trying. I don't understand everything, but I don't need to understand to love you. David looked at Ryan. I want to move forward. If you'll let me. Lucas set his condition. You have to accept Ryan completely. David said, I understand. To Ryan, I'd like to get to know you. David asked about lunch. Lucas said, not today. At the door, David turned. Lucas, I'm proud of you. What you did at that wedding. I'm proud of the man you are. After David left, Lucas collapsed into Ryan. Did that just happen? Ryan said he's trying. That's something. Growth happens in small, consistent choices to show up, to listen, to try. Families break and sometimes heal through uncomfortable work of changing. Over the next months, David and Lucas rebuilt through awkward lunches. David asked Ryan about his work and listened. When David said Sarah would have liked Ryan, Ryan was touched. Football season arrived. David invited Lucas to a game. Lucas brought Ryan. Westfield people stared, but David introduced Ryan loudly. This is Lucas's boyfriend. Marcus Hayes visited Westfield in October, called Lucas for coffee. The three met. Marcus thanked them. Lucas, your courage changed my life. David, your willingness to change gives me hope. Marcus shared updates. Divorced but amicable. Dating someone openly for first time. Lost some endorsements but gained peace. I'm sleeping through the night for the first time in years. David asked Marcus how you date as a gay man in Texas. Marcus appreciated the question. Carefully, bravely, honestly, same as anyone else. David was learning. Lucas watched his father try. It was enough. Meanwhile, Emily had moved to Houston, started therapy. In one session, she realized I was in love with an idea, not a person. I ignored every sign because I wanted the fairy tale. Her therapist asked what she wanted now. Emily said, I want to choose for myself because it feels right at a work conference. Emily met James Chen, an architect. He asked her to coffee. She almost said no, then said yes. Their first date involved honest conversation. Emily admitted I was left at the altar 6 months ago. James asked if she wanted to talk about it. Emily said he was gay. Didn't tell me until the ceremony. James said that must have been devastating. Emily realized it was, but also freeing. 6 months of dating followed. James was patient, honest, genuinely interested. Emily told Grace this is what it should feel like I'm chosen, not settled for. In January, James proposed. Emily said yes. Emily called Lucas. Lucas, it's Emily. Hey, I'm getting married. Congratulations. His name is James, and I love him. Actually love him. And I wanted to invite you. And Ryan? Lucas hesitated. Emily, are you sure? I'm sure. You did me a favor. Lucas, it hurt, but you were honest. Instead, I got to find someone who actually wants me. So yeah, I want you there. The wedding day arrived. Small ceremony, Houston Botanical Gardens. Lucas, Ryan, and David drove together. The ceremony was intimate. 50 people. Emily in simple dress, genuinely glowing. James looking at her like she hung the stars. Lucas watched Emily walk down the aisle. She was radiant, excited, sure, so different from last June. James's vows said, you are my choice. Every day, you're my choice. No one ran, just love. At the reception, Emily approached. You came. Thank you. Lucas said, you look happy. Really happy. Emily said, I am. Thank you for that. Emily met Ryan. So you're the one Lucas chose. Ryan was awkward. Emily said, good. He should be with someone he actually wants. He's cute. Well done. Lucas laughed. Emily approached David. Coach Bennett. Emily said, thank you for coming. David said, I owe you an apology too. Emily said, I'm glad Lucas was honest. Even if it was late, James and Emily's first dance began. Lucas and Ryan watched. David said that could have been you. Lucas said no, it couldn't have. Not really. David said I know that now. Ryan asked want to dance. Lucas said here, in front of everyone. Ryan said why not? They joined couples on the floor. David watched his son happy, open, free. Aunt Diane sat with David. Sarah would love this. David said yeah, she would. Grace gave a toast. To my sister, Emily. You taught me that sometimes the worst thing is actually the best thing in disguise. You got your happy ending. The real one. Lucas watched Emily and James. Lucas said to Ryan, she's actually happy. Ryan said you freed her, just like you freed yourself. 1 year later in June, Lucas and Ryan visited Westfield together, staying at David's house. David's house showed changes. Pride flag sticker on fridge. Photo of Lucas and Ryan on mantle next to Sarah's. Saturday morning, Lucas woke in his childhood bed. Ryan beside him. Never thought he'd bring a boyfriend home. Downstairs, David made breakfast. Morning boys, pancakes. They visited Sarah's grave. Lucas introduced Ryan. Mom, this is Ryan. I think you would have liked him. Dad does. Ryan put flowers on the grave. Lucas said, I'm happy, Mom, like you wanted. Walking through Westfield, holding hands. Some people stared, some smiled, some ignored. Progress, not perfection. That evening on David's porch, watching Texas sunset, the three sat quiet. David said your mom would be so proud of you. Lucas asked you think. David said I know, and I am too. Ryan asked, what are you thinking? Lucas said I'm thinking I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. David said we all are, son. We all are. Sometimes the hardest truth is the one that sets us free. Living authentically doesn't mean life becomes easy, but it means the struggles are honest ones, and the joy is real. What truth have you been afraid to speak? Subscribe to Heart Stories for more stories of courage and transformation.